one of his great passions, total loves that he, that people didn't know about. He loved deep sea fishing, and these are some early pictures of him. He was always happy when he was at sea, and happy deep sea fishing. And he loved being near the ocean. He had a grandmother who lived in La Jolla, so he would go out and deep sea fish and hang out in the ocean. But he also loved making home movies because he still had that acting bug, so he would make a lot of home movies. And when I was in St. Louis last year, somebody gave me a clip of one of the home movies. And what I've realized in watching these home movies, and I had other clips on a reel, is that it wasn't just my dad's love of acting that prompted him to make the home movies, because in every single movie, he manages to rescue a damsel in distress and give her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Even when she doesn't need it. He rescues her from the sea, he rescues her from the railroad tracks, and the excuse. And so here's a little clip that I have. It has no sound. And hopefully you can see it. This is him probably early in his college years, really handsome. Very good looking. One of the family dogs, love the dogs, as I told you. And this is, they had a family home up in Amherstburg, across from Detroit. I don't know who the hunky guy is, maybe my, okay, so here we go. So they've been shipwrecked, we're led to surmise. I love that he fixes her hair. And then he lays her down, now their hair is fixed, and he staggers off in his tattered, shipwrecked. He's weak, but he is going to be the hero. So he stumbles back with his kindling, and he makes a fire, and then he wakes her up so she can see what a hero he is, and they warm their hands over the fire, and now, having proved that he's a hero, he embraces her, which is the sum total of the plot.
That's a solid plot.
Right? I know. He was not a dumb guy. Always.
For good.
Yes, he had that, panache. He was not afraid to stand out. And at 6'4", it's a good thing he knew that, because at 6'4" with that voice, he stood out. But I love that shot of him with the, beaver hat and beaver coat and bowler hat. So his older brother had gone to Yale, his dad had gone to Yale, he went to Yale. And he had a good, distinguished career at Yale, sang in the Glee Club, I think was a cartoonist for the student newspaper. And when he was there, he met a man who was the most famous person he'd ever met. And he was so awed by this man. He was a man named James Thurber, who was one of the most famous essayists and humorists and cartoonists. And this was James Thurber's birthday present to my dad, his 22nd. And if you look at it really closely, it's pretty amazing. So that's my dad, the big oak in the front. And Dachshund, because that's my dad's dog, Loyalty. And way up in the upper left-hand, sort of right around Happy Birthday, 1933, Hitler, which is pretty impressive. And during Prohibition, so we get some beer and Calvin Coolidge, and Envious Age is Thurber, and his wife is Beauty. And so, and Fear, looking over my dad's shoulders, really a beautiful image. And so my dad thought that he should confide in this very successful man what his aspiration was, because, you need to have mentors. And he told Thurber that he wanted to be an actor. And Thurber laughed at him. So my dad thought, well, if that's what this famous man says, then I better go on with my other plan, which is to become an art historian. But I will say that my dad had the last laugh, because I found this great essay, I think it was 1944, and it was in the New Yorker. Thurber wrote for the New Yorker, and it was about giving advice to young people. And in it, Thurber said, ever since I told Vincent Price not to become an actor, I've stopped giving young people advice. So this is my dad's graduation from Yale, and he goes on to study art history at London. And there he is, this young aesthete, and he's, totally enamored with London, but also with the British theater. And he goes to see any play that he can, and he goes to see Hamlet's Gielgud's Hamlet, 8 different times. And finally somebody says, why don't you try out for a play? So he does. And he tries out for an American play at a theater club, and he gets the part. And it's a little play called Chicago, on which the musical was based. So he gets the part, and he's totally bitten by the acting bug. So he decides to go out and get headshots made so he can audition for other things. But he's a grad student, doesn't have a lot of money. So the photographer offers him a deal. So if you actually, let me take some from my portfolio, then I'll shoot your headshots. And my dad never did that again because 2 weeks later, he saw himself life-size over Piccadilly Circus advertising deodorant soap. So he learned that that was a bad idea. But the next play at the same theater club was a play called Victoria Regina about Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. And he thought he had a shot at that because Albert was tall and fair and obviously, spoke German, and my dad was tall and fair, and he was studying German art, so he spoke German, and he tried out for the play, and he got it. And literally went overnight from being a grad student to becoming a big star. So this is my dad in the British production, and he became London Theatre's male newcomer of the year for that year, and the female newcomer that year was Vivian Lee. So an American producer comes over to buy this play for his leading lady, Helen Hayes, and the playwright refuses to sell it without my dad. So my dad gets taken over to the United States and basically becomes a matinee idol in the biggest play on Broadway with the first lady of the American theater, Helen Hayes. So here he is, this huge star, from nobody to being in the biggest play. And of course, Hollywood comes calling, right? So, Hollywood wants this handsome man. And my dad was always a very humble guy, so he went and he asked Miss Hayes, he said, should I take this? Because Hollywood was offering him $1 million movie contract in the middle of the Depression.
Yeah.
And Miss Hayes asked him a very simple question. She said, do you think you know your craft? My dad thought about it. He said, well, how can I know my craft? I've been in like 1.5 plays. He had like 2 lines in Chicago. And she said, exactly. You do not want to be a flash in the pan. You go learn your craft. So he turned down the $1 million movie contract, which was like a big deal. Awesome ringer. And that's the ringer that my assistant has. I don't know what that means. And so in those days, Broadway closed in the summers because there was no air conditioning. And so they did summer stock all over the East Coast. And you could work with all the great ladies and actors and actresses. So for the next 2 years, my dad performed during the year on Broadway, and he went all over learning his craft. This is my dad with Anna May Wong, the great Chinese-American actress. And this is him with Lorette Taylor, another very famous actress. He got to work with amazing, amazing people. So by the time Hollywood came calling again, he accepted the contract and he felt like he learned his craft. And he goes out to be an actor and they want him to be a leading man. And you can see why. Look how handsome he was. I mean, unbelievably handsome. And they put him in this screwball comedy called Service Deluxe. And he hated it. I mean, this is a man who was charitable to, pretty much everyone. And he said of his co-star Constance Bennett that she had the figure of a dress on a coat hanger and the personality to match. So he was just, he thought, what am I doing? This is not what I wanted to do. He wanted to be a character actor. The actors he admired, the roles he wanted to sink his teeth into were like, Edward G. Robinson and Spencer Tracy. He didn't look like them. He did not look like them. So he decided that the place he could do that was to go back onto Broadway, and he joined the Mercury Theater.
Yeah.
And of course, Orson Welles was the enfant terrible of Broadway. He's doing all these avant-garde productions of classic plays. So my dad signs a contract, $100 a week, which is a big come down from the $1 million movie contract, right? To play all these parts. And he gets to work with some amazing people and really learn a whole different kind of acting. And this is what he discovers he loves. He also discovers he loves a woman in the cast named Edith Barrett. And she was a very famous melodrama star. And they were married during the run of the Mercury Theater. So when my dad went back to Hollywood, he went back both a married man and somebody who was willing to embrace the character parts. And he did a lot of what he called costume pictures. This is with Betty Davis and Errol Flynn and Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex. And that's another George Hurrell photograph on closest to me. But you know, Hollywood really didn't know what to do with him, right? Because here's this actor who's sort of defying his own look. So that's him playing Joseph Smith in the Brigham Young story, and Tower of London, which is an awesome movie. And that, of course, was really special to my dad because he got to meet two people who would become dear, dear friends, Basil Rathbone and Boris Karloff. And the other fun thing is Barbara O'Neill, who's next to Boris Karloff. My dad grew up with Barbara O'Neill and in St. Louis, and she was his first girlfriend. So a whole lovely little full circle, but the thing that he remembered most from that movie was, you know, we talk about rookie hazing, which has gone a little bit far in the world of sports, but it happens in movies too. So my dad's characters were supposed to be drowned in a wine vat, in a vat of Malmsey. And so Boris and Basil thought, you know, they should teach this young upstart actor something. So they knew they would be drowning him. So for 2 days they told everybody to dump their garbage in that. So cigarette butts, the rest of their coffee, Coke, and then they drowned my dad in there and held him under just a little bit too long. And that's what made my dad love Boris. So that's a picture of him. And you know, at least they were character parts. And this is when he appeared in the movie that I was sharing with you yesterday, one of the worst movies ever made, Green Hell. Awesome cast. I mean, amazing cast. Truly terrible. And I have the clip because honestly, there is a line that my dad says in this movie that is one of the worst lines ever in any movie, and I have it here for you.
What's the thermometer say, Richardson? 130. Boy, it's hot. I'm roasting.
In the swamps, it gets as high as 140.
I thought they never roasted a man till after he was dead.
That's why they call it the Green Hell.
Strange guy, Richardson. He always keeps to himself. You know anything about him?
Nothing. That's about the best thing to know about any man who's dead.
As it takes. Don't look now, but there's something moving over there.
Isn't their alligators sure to look hungry?
Well, don't fall in, Tex. You might poison them.
How mysterious the jungle is at night.
The more you see of it, the less you know about it.
Sounds incredibly lonely, doesn't it? I wonder why there's so many lonely people in such a crowded world. Brandon, do you think a man can love two women at the same time, in his heart be faithful to each, and yet want to be free?
What do you want, an answer or a justification?
Do you think a man can love two women at the same time, be faithful to both, and yet want to be free? Wow. And he remembered that line at the end of his life.